Moving on to the next topic. This is going to be a deep one. And we must keep it significant. We must keep it against the grain. And so we want to
Sir.
talk about this identity. We want to talk about the identity of which comes first, your blackness or your Christian identity. And the reason we must talk about this, the reason why we must share our discussion on this is primarily because it is a growing common theme to where politics is being talked about in such a light to where it brings up race a lot more often than not. And anytime something is happening, it's race based. I mean, just in our news, the way media has been portraying things, it's always race based. And so we must talk about it. What comes first, your black identity or your Christian identity? For me, I believe that my Christian identity comes first. It has always come first because growing up, before I found Christ, I was ridiculed. I was talked about for the way I looked. I was always, and when I got to a certain point in high school, you're trying to figure out who you want to hang with. You're searching for your identity in this walk with, in this life. And a lot of people are out there searching for identity, searching for purpose. And I was able to find my identity through Christ. And I remember some of the first few instances where when I first, found my way with Christ, I remember having this burden still on me, the stigma still on me, to where I had to be so cautious with who I was seen with. Right. When I was searching for popularity, I could only be seen with a select few people. Right. I didn't want the embarrassment of being seen with, a short, stumpy, smelly looking dude. And so I remember when I came to Christ, I had to put that train of thought away. I had to say, look, I'm not so much concerned with who I'm around. I'm so much concerned with who I'm winning for Christ. And so I had to let go of that embarrassment. I had to let go of that stigma, that train of thought. And I had to say, look, the reason I have become this way is because I'm a kingdom citizen, and now I withhold my Christian identity. Am I to negate the color of my skin? No, because you can't do that in this world. Because I mean, first impressions are everything, and the way the history has been, showing us that people are so intrigued with color, and I don't think it should be that way. It wasn't that way in Bible times. If you think about Moses, he was in the Egyptian camp and he was not Egyptian. And so, I mean, he probably didn't look like them. But guess what? They had, they just embraced, they just, did what they did. And so color wasn't an issue. Race wasn't a thing. But a lot of times in today's society, I think the common misconception is to put your color of your skin even before Jesus Christ. And I don't think that should be the case.
Yeah, well put. Um, so I don't necessarily disagree with that because it's very much in line with a lot of how I view it. I think it's just how I come to the conclusion is it's a little bit more like I think nuanced. So the short answer is should uh black or white whoever put their race before their faith in Jesus Christ? And the answer is no, you shouldn't put your race. So I'm a Christian before I'm black. I think to really throw a wrench in this conversation and to really spice it up, I guess, would be what what would be the pushback on that. So to really just talking about what the pushback would be on it, and I think it comes from a perspective of this uh white centered religion, the the positioning of the Christian faith from the lens of like whiteness. And so I think that's where the conversation really stems. And so because a lot of Christianity is centered around a white experience in this country, I think that's where it's made. I mean, because I look at it from the standpoint of why would somebody want to be why would it matter if you're black before Christian? Like, why would that matter? Well, there obviously has to be some uh potential deterrents that are getting in the way. So if being black is a reality that I live in, So I'm an African American. My skin color is brown, and that's a reality that I live in. People, when they see me, especially, they see me hair twisted, so on and so forth, they're gonna be like, they're not gonna see me and say, "Oh, that's a Christian," right away, at least on the outside looking in. Let's say they were about 20 feet away. They're gonna say, "Oh, that gentleman or that guy, he's black." They're already going to say black, and they're going to immediately go to the first frame of reference they have of a black person. So if they have positive experiences, so if it's a white person and they have positive experiences with black people, the first frame of reference when they see a person that fits my description is going to be a positive thought. If they've had negative interactions or if they have negative perceptions of people with my skin color, they're going to go default to that. And that's the same way that it's just normal for all of us to do that, because we oftentimes use stereotypes as a shortcut. And so I think as a result of the experiences that black people have had when it comes to racism, there's a case to be made. Racism in terms of the faith, when we talk about the faith, I think the reason why blackness comes, I don't know if first is the right way to put it, but for the sake of argument, may come first before someone talks about their faith, is because there is this division in the church between black and white. People say, why is there a black church? That sounds divisive, but there's a black church because there's a white church, right? So there's a black
Yes.
church because of segregation, because of racism. There is a black church because this racial casting system was created. And so it doesn't mean that it's universally maintained in all areas, and it's something that we should maintain intentionally. We should be very intentional about creating spaces where we can have diversity and differences of opinions, views, so on and so forth. But when we talk about race and we talk about blackness, why a black person would put their race before that? I mean, even when we talk about politically, so like some people are of the opinion that if you are a Christian, there's no circumstance in which you should vote Democrat. There's no circumstance in which you should vote Democrat because they do not consistently uphold the standards of the Bible. Not to mention that the Republicans don't either, but let's just bring that up into conversation. So, but here's the thing: I would argue that the vast majority of black people vote Democrat. And there is a great segment of black, I would argue majority. I don't know this to be a fact, but if we just go based on the numbers of African Americans and how connected they are with the Christian faith, that most of them vote Democrat if they vote. And they're all Christians. And so, but you would say, why? There's some type of disconnect in it because what is believed oftentimes is that one party does care about something that is also biblical in addition to abortion and same-sex marriage, all these other things, and they believe that the one biblical thing that is upheld is a pursuit of equality and justice and those type of things. Now, whether or not you disagree, because I don't fully agree with that, but whether or not you agree or disagree, it doesn't matter. But for sake of conversation, I'm mentioning that part because that's a clear, direct reflection of one's race as to why. And that's something that, and I'm very critical of that. Just voting for Democrat just because you're black, or just voting Democrat because you feel that they will actually address the things that you want to address, when in reality they don't. I mean, it's not a matter of that. They don't really effectively address those matters of justice as well. So all of that being said, there is a case for why I won. And I was in this camp before God had revealed to me personally the importance of putting my faith first. But there was situations where I was like, I'm black before I'm a Christian, and I'm going to make sure that I don't lose that part. And mainly because when you negate your blackness as a Christian, you get assimilated to whiteness. The expectation becomes everything that's associated with black now is wrong, and you start to look down on your race. And I think that's the mentality a lot of people think about when they think about putting blackness back. So we put blackness in the forefront because it's been resisted, but we don't make blackness. And here is the key caveat: we don't make blackness an idol. We do not make it an idol. So I'm open to people who feel blackness is important for them to emphasize over faith because of the condition of Christianity in this country. I don't think that they're saying blackness in the sense of it being an idol more important than Jesus, but it has to come into it's like I'm experiencing this conversion, this faith through the lens of a black man or a black woman. I think that's where they're coming from. They're like the lens in which I'm experiencing God is from that lens because of the country we live in and because of the historical experiences that we have. So, what do you think about that?
It gets into the topic of segregation, integration. I know a lot of blacks would choose to be segregated. I know a lot of blacks that have no ill will towards any group of people. So it's sort of like, for me, it jumps into that topic of, do you think blacks should be segregated away by themselves and try to build back up, like things like Black Wall Street, and just are we in are we talking about that idea? Because if we jump into that topic, we start to go off and wondering, okay, because the mindset is it hasn't gotten right historically. It hasn't shown to, I mean, maybe some people think that it has gotten better. Some people will dare say that it's gotten worse as far as equality is concerned, and so a lot of people will want to be more segregated. And so I think if you come from that perspective, it becomes a tough thing, because now I don't think that that is the godlike thing to do. But I mean, I'm not the expert. I don't know. I mean, and so I just don't know. I think we should all be kingdom citizens. My Christian instincts will tell me that I think we should all
Mhm.
just be equal. My Christian instincts tell me that we can all be equal. But obviously, man has fought against that Christian value for so long, to the point where
Mhm.
here we are talking about this conversation. I personally
Yeah.
don't think that we should be segregated. As many of you all can see and tell, I'm mixed myself, and so it would be hard for me to say that, no. Here I am mixed breed. And so I don't believe that we should be segregated. I hear people talking about Kamala Harris. I'm like, look, I'm mixed with Indian. So am I black? You know what I mean? So it's
Mhm.
like, well, I'm mixed with
Right.
Trinidadian with ancestors from India. So it's like, look, am I black? So I don't subscribe to the idea of putting my color first. As you can see, because I'm just that super Christian that believes that God is going to make a way. And so I think that, and then so on the topic of segregating races, I don't believe in that either. And so I think that we could put our skin color on the top of the forefront in such a way to where it can, you know, and we have, like you mentioned, black church, black Twitter, everything is black, black, black. We should take pride in what we are, who we are, but it always seems like it always crumbles. It always gets collapsed by other people
Mm.
in such a way to where it makes us think, okay, can we be both black and Christian? And you mentioned it. A lot of blacks do vote for Democrats, but guess what? There is a growing. I feel there is a growing
Mhm.
spike in black Republicans as well, and it's one of those things where if you keep an
Mhm.
eye out, you'll see this growing trend of blacks that are out there. You just gotta, you do
Oh,
have to
yeah.
look a little harder, but
Oh,
they are
yeah.
out there, and so um, my Christian identity supersedes all of this, because at the end of the day, I do believe that God can take care of all of this, but it takes, like we mentioned in previous videos, it takes a supernatural thing that's going to come from people bowing down, burning their idols, burning, everything that is prideful. I think it's going to take some things from us as
Mhm.
well to let go. And as far as what I'm seeing, for the vast majority of people, it's going to take a supernatural, just overwhelming, spirit to come and change our thought process, because politics has seemed to just corrupt the
Yeah.
minds. Politics has seemed to talk colorism so much to the point where we can't get off of it, and God's not there any longer. And so
Mhm.
I don't know, man. I don't
That's
know.
an interesting
I
perspective.
don't think we should. I don't think segregation is the. Well, what do you think? I don't think segregation
Mhm.
is the answer either. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I don't think it's the answer. Uh but here's the thing. Are we having a conversation about segregation when we're talking about should you be black first then Christian? Or are we having a conversation of restoring one's identity? Because I do think, like, for example, the children of Israel, when they became the Jews, when they became converted to Christians, they still upheld a lot of their Jewish traditions. Being a Jew still mattered to them, to the point where they were so normative in their Jewish experiences that the Gentile believers, they wanted them to uphold those traditions and things of that nature. So that was, in a sense, them putting their ancestry and tradition over Christ, and they had to be corrected by Apostle Paul. And the apostles all got together and had this conversation, and it was determined that they should not put the Gentiles under the same expectations as the Jews, mainly because God wasn't holding them to those same expectations, mainly because he gave them their spirit. He gave them his spirit. He filled them with the Holy Ghost. And that was something that they didn't even know could happen. So, based off of that experience, and so I've used that as an example to say there are going to be in some cases where we as and I think this is where the conversation really is at. How much what areas of blackness have to go away for me to be a Christian? And if those areas have to go away, is it because they're toxic and not in alignment with God and his word? Or do they have to go away because they make white people feel comfortable? And that's where I think the conversation really should aim at. If it's just toxic in and of itself, there's some things in our culture that are toxic. I mean, the fact that when they talk about politics and they say, we're going to do this for black people, we're going to bring criminal justice reform, like all black people are criminals. Like, the fact that criminality is a part of a culture, when you associate that type of stuff with a culture,
Hmm.
like that's just so wrong. And so if we're saying criminal behavior is a part of blackness that we want to maintain, then obviously that's a toxic thing for us to want to keep. So toxic things we need to let up on if that's what defines blackness. But if there's positive things like black history, so on and so forth, or just certain traditional practices like jumping a broom at weddings, or whatever traditions that we uphold that aren't toxic, if you're asking us to get rid of those things just to be Christian, then that's where the issue comes. And I don't believe that that's the case, but I'm sure there is an invalidation at certain times where you have black people that attend certain churches that are probably predominantly white, and they don't feel as validated. So that may be where the conversation is. Are we validating people and their heritage enough to where they feel comfortable? Have we really gotten out of that segregation mentality? Have we really enough, shown enough love in those regards? And those are conversations that we've had with our pastors and with the other ministers and things like that, is making sure that we're giving the level of validation, not idolizing their race, but showing enough love, compassion, and validation that you are good just the way you are, whether you're black, white, whatever. You are good, and God loves you. And are we validating those
Hmm.
people?
Yeah, right. I'm in agreement with that. I think that should be the case. I think that should, and it's going to take some huge efforts to do so. I know, like, we have some ministers within our circle, who really are advocates of white evangelicals coming to the table and apologizing and validating. And I think we've seen some of that within our own circle.
Mhm.
And so I think it will take a huge effort from um, white evangelicals to really go out of their way and apologize and validate that, look, we got your backs, we with you. We may have differing ideas when it comes to politics. Who know? I don't know. Just come to the
Mhm.
table and talk about it. And so I think it'll take a huge push, a huge effort, and everyone making that cognizant effort in doing so. But it could be done. It could be done.
Yeah. Yeah.